I know what you're thinking, how could AC be connected to the Galar region? It's a long story. See, AC has been alive for quite some time, 3000 years to be precise. He used to be the king of Kalos back in the day. Under his rule, the region went to war and his fleet was sent to battle. The Pokémon died and this made AC extremely sad, so he built a machine to bring his fleet back to life by absorbing the life energy of many other Pokémon. After that, he used the machine as a weapon to end the war. But Floette left him after learning about what he had done. The weapon also made AC immortal, as well as causing him to grow an extreme amount. Then he traveled around the world looking for his Floette. Didn't find it, but that's when he visited the Hoenn region, where he planted a tree outside of the Cave of Origin. And this led me to make this video, where I will not only explore AC's design, I will also explain how the sources of inspiration behind it could be related to the lore of the Galar region, and also maybe to the Gen 4 remakes. So get ready for some religion, history, and also Mesopotamian, Greek, and Norse mythology, as we dive into the order. Okay, AC. That's a very peculiar name. It's composed of the first and last letters of the alphabet, which first implies a possible connection to writing and language, but also is a reference to AC's immortality. This is a reference to the Alpha and the Omega, a combination of the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. The symbol has its origins in the Book of Revelations, which tells the Christian story of the end days, the Apocalypse. It represents the eternal existence of God. There's nothing before the Lord and there's nothing after the Lord. Revelation 21:6 in particular is important for us. It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. This verse is extremely similar to what Lysander's archives say about AC. The king's name was AC, and he was both the beginning and the end. This might actually be connected to another thing we learned from the archives. AC unified Kalos for the first time, something he shares with the king Clovis I, first to unify France. That king is also connected to the use of the fleur-de-lis as a symbol of monarchy, symbol which inspired Lysander's name, the ultimate weapon, and the eternal flower Floette. So AC's name is related to the end of the world, which goes well with another of his origins. AC being an immortal man who wanders around the world as punishment for his actions reminds me of the legend of the Wandering Jew. Around the 1300s, in Europe, a legend began to spread about an immortal man who was alive when Jesus was crucified. Apparently, the story derives from the Gospel of Matthew, following the words said by Jesus himself, "Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." But the earliest mention of this legend comes from a compilation of medieval chronicles, known as the Flores Historiarum, redacted at the Abbey of St. Albans. In the chronicles we find the story of an Armenian archbishop who claimed to know a man from Jerusalem who was alive in the times of Jesus. On his way to the crucifixion, Jesus had stopped for a moment to rest. The man hit Jesus, telling him to continue. But Christ replied by cursing this person to wander the earth until the day of the second coming, the Apocalypse from the Book of Revelations. The man was actually Joseph of Arimathea, who according to the Bible was responsible for the burial of Jesus. We'll talk about him later, but first we need to mention someone who is related to the story of the Wandering Jew and is another of AC's origins. Many scholars had found similarities between the medieval version of the Wandering Jew and the Norse god Odin. Odin was sometimes seen as a wanderer, wearing a hat and carrying a staff. Looking like this, he traveled around the 9 realms searching knowledge. How is Odin related to AC's design? The wanderer aspect of the character is just the surface. There's more hidden in the Norse influence Kalos shows in its lore. The Aura Trio, the most important set of legendary Pokémon from Kalos, are pretty well known to have been based after the creatures who live in the World Tree holding the 9 realms of Norse cosmology, Yggdrasil. Nidhogg, the dragon lurking in the base of the tree, is inspiration for Sigurd. Yveltal is both the eagle resting in the top of the tree and Vidfolnir, the hawk sitting on its forehead. Sirnias represents the 4 stags from Midgard. They embody the 4 winds of the 4 cardinal points, sometimes appearing as dwarves. They also are the 4 seasons of the year. Maybe my theory about the legendaries being hinted at in previous gens, that might actually be correct. This is also related to the titles for the games. X and Y were the first games in the series to be in 3D. This is why we got the X, Y and Z Pokémon, as those are the names of the axes used to represent the 3 dimensions. X is horizontal movement, Y is vertical, and Z represents depth, how near or far is the object from the viewer. We know AC is connected to a tree, but how is Odin related to this one? The name Yggdrasil means Odin's horse. Why? Well, the god wanted to learn how to use the runes, a Germanic writing system used by the Norse that appears in many places throughout the Galar region. The mythological Norns were the only ones capable of using the runes. Odin wanted that knowledge, so he showed them that he was willing to sacrifice everything for it. He pierced himself with a spear and hung himself from a branch of the World Tree, looking down to the depth of the Well of Urd until the runes appeared to him from the waters. This disregard for his own well-being was common from Odin. In one occasion, Odin visited Mimir, an extremely wise being who lived in the Well of Urd. Mimir had knowledge of basically everything in the cosmos, ability he gained by drinking water from the well. Odin wanted to have Mimir's knowledge, and Mimir agreed on the condition that Odin gave one of his eyes as payment. And he just did it, the mad lad. Why is this important? Have you ever seen AZ's right eye? The answer is no. AZ's right eye never appears, not in the games, not in Generations, not in the manga. So add this to my list of things that connect AZ to the Unova region. Fun story. Odin once went to a royal wedding. In the middle of the palace there was a tree known as Barnstoker. Odin walked to the tree, buried the sword in the trunk and said he would gift it to the man who was able to pull it free from the trunk. This version of Odin as a wanderer will go on to inspire the stories around the wizard Merlin, and the sword in Barnstoker became the sword in the stone from the British legend of King Arthur, and this takes us to the Galar region. Arthurian literature has a very odd connection to the story of the Wandering Jew. Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table were looking for the Holy Grail, a cup containing the blood of Christ. The Holy Grail was said to have been taken to England by the same guy who collected the blood of Jesus from the cross, Joseph of Arimathea, the Wanderer himself, who also planted a very iconic tree in the same place. And here comes the fun stuff. One of the writers who made this story popular was one of the sources used for the Flores Historiarum, which not only included the story of the Wandering Jew, but also talked about King Arthur. Who was that guy? Saint Bede. the Venerable, a Benedictine monk known as the father of English history. He might actually be one of the inspirations behind one of the rivals from the next games, Bede, who we see in one of the trailers taking a look at his watch during battle. This reminds me of how Saint Bede is also who established the practice of dating forward from the birth of Christ through the use of Anno Domini, or Year of the Lord. Bede's name could also come from Sir Bedivere, one of King Arthur's knights. After all, he is not the only one of the knights appearing in the games. Milo's Spanish name is Percy, from Percival, another of the members of the Fellowship, who inspired Richard Wagner to write his opera Parsifal, in which the knight visits a magic garden. It is now time to talk about another of AEC's origins, the Mesopotamian hero Gilgamesh, protagonist of the Epic of Gilgamesh, a compilation of Sumerian and Akkadian poems that together form the most ancient great work of literature. The 4,000 years old epic tells the story of an actual king who ruled over the city of Uruk and the hardships he went through while trying to achieve immortality. In ancient times, the epic was the main narration of the Mesopotamia, with many different versions appearing during a period of thousands of years. Some of them even got to Greece, and were influenced for Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey. But after that, the Western world forgot about Gilgamesh. Until 1849, when an English archaeologist who was looking for evidence of the events from the Old Testament in the ancient Assyrian city of Nineveh found some clay tablets showcasing cuneiform writing. Later on, in other places, many other tablets were discovered, translated, and that's how Gilgamesh came back from oblivion. Let's read something from the prologue. Gilgamesh, who saw the deep, the country's foundations, who knew the proper ways, was wise in all matters. He explored everywhere and learned of everything the sum of wisdom. He who saw what was secret discovered what was hidden. He brought back a tale from before the deluge. He came a far road, was weary, found peace, and set all of his labors on a tablet of stone. He built the rampant of Uruk, the sheepfold, of Holy Eanna, the secret storehouse. The deep or abyss refers to Apsu, the realm of Ea, or Enki as the Sumerians called him. Apsu was a freshwater sea located under the surface of the earth. During the epic from this realm, Gilgamesh gained knowledge of life, death, how to worship the gods, and more. So Gilgamesh looked into the waters of the deep and found knowledge. Like Odin when he discovered the runes in the water of the Well of Urd. It is also stated that Gilgamesh explored everywhere, similar to Odin and AEC. What is the rest of the epic about? The story explains that Gilgamesh was a tyrant who oppressed the people of Uruk, so they asked the gods for help, and they created a wild man named ENKIDU. ENKIDU challenged Gilgamesh to a fight. Gilgamesh wins the fight, but they both become friends, recognizing each other's strength. Then the king wanted to gain fame. To do so, he decides to kill the demigod Humbaba, who lives in the cedar forest. Impressed by this feat, the goddess Ishtar falls in love with Gilgamesh. But he rejects her, so she sends the bull of heaven to kill the king. The two friends join forces, kill the bull, and this makes the gods angry, so they curse Enkidu, who dies shortly after. This makes Gilgamesh utterly sad and fearful of dying, so he goes to visit Utnapishtim, one of his relatives who is immortal and survived the flood sent by the gods to kill all of humanity, thing he did thanks to the warning sent by Enki. Yeah, this is the origin of Noah's story. Utnapishtim explains that his case was an exception and Gilgamesh cannot become immortal. But he also tells the king about a plant that will make him young again. Gilgamesh gets the plant, but a snake eats it while he is distracted. Thanks to this, Gilgamesh realizes that his real immortality will be his legacy, so he makes a request for his journey to be written down. There's writing again, which is pretty meta for the oldest story in the world. Here we can already see some similarities with AC. Both are kings who committed crimes, whose friends died, but have a connection with immortality and writing, and notice how they both get rejected by immortal beings. But there's another poem which is sometimes included as a prequel to the events of the Cedar Forest, and this one fits even better. Gilgamesh, Enkidu and the Netherworld. In this poem, Ishtar plants a tree in the inner garden of Uruk. But when she came back to check, a snake was living in the roots of the tree. The mythological Anzu bird and its young rested in the top. And in the trunk, a female demon made herself a dwelling. This demon was known as Lilitu and later on became the Lilith from Jewish folklore, a creature similar to a succubus. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? If we compare this tree with Yggdrasil and thus the Aura Trio, where Sigurd represents the balance between life and death, balance AC broke by killing thousands of Pokémon to revive just one. Wouldn't it be funny if Gilgamesh killed the snake? Cause he did kill the snake. The rest of the creatures ran away in fear. After that, Ishtar gives Gilgamesh two items believed to be a drum and a flute. But the instruments fall to the Netherworld. Enkidu offers to go himself to the Netherworld and bring the instruments back, but he doesn't follow the king's instructions and ends up trapped down there. And it is only with the help of God that Gilgamesh manages to bring him back by opening a hole in the ground. Once he's back, Enkidu explains the horrors he saw, and this is what causes Gilgamesh to pursue immortality. Here we can see the connection between Gilgamesh and AC, the creatures of the tree and the Aura Trio, and also the links between Enkidu's descent to the Netherworld with Floet's death and resurrection. Okay, now it's time to move on to what this tells us about the possible inspirations for Gen 8. One thing about AC's connection with Gilgamesh caught my attention. Gilgamesh, just like the Colossian king, was really tall. Why is that? Well, the epic says Gilgamesh was 2/3 god and 1/3 human, but there's more. In 1946, a series of scriptures dating to the 4th century BC were discovered in Israel. Those scriptures, written in Hebrew, Greek and Aramaic, are known as the Dead Sea Scrolls and contain some never-seen-before biblical books, as well as the oldest surviving versions of some others. And here, Gilgamesh appears again. Like Lilith, who in this version of the Bible is seen as Adam's actual first wife, Gilgamesh gets a new role. In the Book of Giants, he is a Nephilim. Who are the Nephilim? Well, the Bible describes them as the offspring of the sons of God and female humans. This is understood as fallen angels who, through their union with women, created giant sons. But some newer translations disagree with this interpretation and point towards the angels being actually the sons of the gods, in plural. They are actually the gods from different religions, a remnant of the times when the Jewish religion was polytheistic, absorbing people from multiple tribes into a singular religion. The Nephilim and the fallen angels corrupted humanity by teaching them things like weaponry, cosmetics, sorcery, and how to make mirrors, because God wanted them to learn about those things by themselves. Then God sends a deluge to kill the Nephilim and purify humanity, leaving Noah alive, who was warned by the angel Uriel. So, do I think that those giants are connected to the origins of Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing?
Yes, I do.
Let me explain. Gilgamesh's grandfather, Enmekar, was the king when the confusion of languages happened, confusion caused by Ea/Enki, the same guy who warned Utnapishtim about the deluge, like Uriel did with Noah. Because of this, Enmekar and Gilgamesh were sometimes equated with Nimrod, the Babylonian king who built the Babel Tower, you know, from the biblical story of the confusion of languages. Nimrod also makes an appearance in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. In Inferno, Nimrod appears in the 9th circle of hell as a giant who is bound to the ground. This image is inspired by Tartarus from Greek mythology, a place located in the abyss under Hades, where the Cyclops and the 100-armed giant Hecatoncheires were imprisoned by Kronos. Zeus sets them free and battles alongside the giants to overtake Olympus, imprisoning the old generations of gods, known as Titans, in Tartarus, where they are guarded by the old prisoners. Meanwhile, in the biblical book of Enoch, Noah's grandfather, who also wrote the Book of Giants, the Tartarus appears as the place where the fallen angels or watchers are imprisoned, bound to the ground until Judgment Day, and the place is guarded by Uriel. Him again. This takes us back to Norse mythology, where the universe started from an abyss located between the lands of elemental ice and elemental fire. From this chaos, the frost giant Ymir was born, and he created more giants. Odin and his two brothers were part of the Aesir, the tribe of the gods, and also were descendants of the giants. The brothers challenged Ymir's power and killed him. Then they used his body to create the universe, the Yggdrasil tree and the 9 realms. The rest of the giants were casted to the realm of Jotunheim. How is this related to Pokémon? Just take a look to the Arceus plates. When the universe was created, its shards became displayed. The power of defeated giants infuses this plate. We already mentioned the runes appearing all over Galar as a symbol of the Norse influence in the games, but, and I've already made a video about this, there's also Zacian and Samacenta, partially based after Skoll and Hati, the wolves who, when they devour the sun and moon, initiate Ragnarok, the apocalypse. During this event, the children of Loki will attack the gods. The giant serpent Jormungandr will face Thor, and the wolf Fenrir, father of Skoll and Hati, will break free from its chains to kill Odin. They will be accompanied by the giants, who will carry towards Asgard, defeating the gods and ending the world. The giants and the fallen angels were both waiting for the apocalypse. And let me tell you who is the leader of the giants. Surtur, who carries a flaming sword. And take a guess, who also has a flaming sword? Uriel, the angel who guarded Tartarus. Why does he have the sword? To protect the entrance of the Garden of Eden, after Adam and Eve ate from the Tree of Knowledge, to protect the Tree of Life. Because of this, in Jewish Kabbalistic tradition, the path up the Tree of Life is known as the Path of the Flaming Sword. And as I said in a different theory, the Tree of Life fits perfectly when placed over the map of Galar. What am I saying with all of this? That AC will make a comeback in Gen 8? Not necessarily. I think they are going to use a combination of some of these sources to create a story for the Galar region that will follow the idea of Ragnarok, creating an end of the world scenario, though probably on a smaller scale, at least as small as Dynamaxing allows it. Then they will use the lore around the giants to explain or at least expand on what the Arceus blades say. Or a football tournament, what do I know?